Hey, Shalom, Akim Shalom. First thing and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahawashi, Yahawashi, Bashim Kakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Just another quick lesson through the Spirit, kind of following up on the Between the Testaments. Just a little history on how, in fact, Yahawashi indeed took references from the apocrypha due to certain precepts. Okay, and this is why you go precept upon precept, line upon line, because in fact a lot of things that Yahawashi quoted, once again, you can actually find them in the apocrypha if you link the precepts up properly. Okay, because it says it is often said that the apocryphal books are non-canonical because they are not recognized or quoted by the New Testament authors by Yahawashi. It says the problem with this claim is that it's based on ignorance. But when I say ignorance, I do not mean that the person is ignorant, but the statement is founded on a lack of information. Because like I said in the last video, they took the apocrypha out because of the history and to show you how the Israelites have become Hellenized. Okay, that was the whole interjection of replacement theology, or incorporating the other nations as being the people, or salvation extolled to everybody. Okay, like when you go into that word Catholic, it goes into universal. So replacement theology can be synonymous with universal, or salvation that's extolled to all nations, and that's not true. Okay, but it says the New Testament makes a repeated use of the apocryphal books and the theology therein. However, it must be noted that the word quote is used here loosely. But it says normally we think of quotations as being somewhat lengthy, or at least a few full sentences. But normally I would agree with this sentiment. But however, I think the New Testament authors have set the precedent much lower. For example, anyone would not say that Yahawashi quoted from Psalms 22 while on the cross, my power, have you forsaken me? But that goes into the crucifixion. Okay, which shows you that that's canonical. Shows you that that's the precept to prove that Yahawashi was mentioned in the Old Testament for you Old Testament Israelites out there. Okay, he quoted it through David. Okay, which is the father of Solomon. Okay, which Solomon was Yahawashi in the reincarnation. But anyway, it says most people probably won't recognize quotes from the Apocrypha, so it's easy to make the claim that the New Testament does not quote it. But in the New Testament and Yahawashi both quote the apocryphal books, even if they are short or glancing quotes. Okay, and he went into a list of precepts here, which basically breaks it down, because he go into a little history of the Septuagint, which we kind of went into briefly in the last video. But anyway, it says apocryphal quotes in reference in the New Testament. You got Matthew 6 and 19 and 20. It says, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. And by the way, this is not the King James quote, or this is not the King James version, which is being quoted here. But you can look up these particular scriptures in the King James version or the New Living Testament. And also you can look up the King James version of the Apocrypha. Okay, and you can compare the two and see that they're very similar. But it says, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, which neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Okay, then you got James 5 and 3. It says, your gold and silver have rusted, and that rust will be evidence against you, and it will eat your flesh like fire. For you have laid up treasures for the last days. Now, the comparison to that, or the precept, will be Sirach 29 and 10 through 11. It says, lose your silver for the sake of brother or friend, and do not let it rust under the stone and be lost. Lay up for yourselves treasure according to the commandments of the Most High, and it will profit you more than gold. Also, when you go into the charity as well, the laws on charity, etc., that's mentioned in great detail of the Apocrypha. So where do you think Yahawashi got it from? You see? So that shows you that the entire book is all one book, man. You see? They just break it up. But it says, there's no known Old Testament passage that comes close to Sirach, but this is partly due to the fact that there is no concept of heaven in the Old Testament. Okay, which they really kind of go off on that, but we understand. It says the Christian concept of heaven and hell came through the intertestamental period that are found in the Apocrypha, Enoch, which that's off. Okay, in very many similar books of the Old Testament. Okay, because the book of Enoch, we don't go off that. That's not canonical. That's contradictory to the scriptures. Okay, but it says Matthew 7 and 16. It says you will know them by their fruits, and this is a quote from Yahawashi. He quoted that. Okay, Sirach 27 and 6. It says its fruit discloses the cultivation of a tree. Okay, so it says this is a glancing reference, but nothing like it appears in the Old Testament. All right. Matthew 16:18, it says, I tell you, you are Peter, and this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. Okay, which we understand it goes into hell, which hell means the grave. But in this case, Hades is not talking about a interdimensional or some type of hell. This is talking about actually the opposition or the opposition against the men of the Lord and the doctrine of Yahawashi, Yahawashi. Okay, like right now, these Christians coming against us, you could consider that the gates of hell. Okay, destruction, because they're trying to debunk what we're speaking, but they can't. Okay, because for one thing, they don't have the historical facts. Second of all, they don't understand the scriptures. You see, so this is not talking about a literal hell. That's symbolic. Okay, but nonetheless, that's talking about anybody or anything coming against this truth, starting with you Edomites, man. Okay, but Wisdom of Solomon 16:13, it says, for you have power over life and death, but you lead morals down to the gates of Hades and back at it again. And if you read it in King James Version, it quotes a little bit different, but it's still on par with Matthew 16:18. So it says it should be mentioned that the Hebrew reference to the gates of Sheol in Job 38:17 and Isaiah 38:10 is translated to the gates of Hades in the Septuagint. And you have to understand the Septuagint was reading the Greek. So Hades would be the Greek way of saying it, but Sheol, which means the pit or the grave, okay, in the Hebrew, which is pronounced Sheol, okay, which means hell, but it's not talking about an intimate or some type of underdimensional realm. It's not talking about that. It says the Hebrew Old Testament nowhere used the phrase gates of Hades because it is Greek, because we know the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. New Testament was mainly written in the Greek and the Latin. Okay, but you can find it in Hebrew as well. But it says Hades and Sheol were not the same thing. It says Matthew 27:43. It says, if he's the son of the Most High, let the Most High deliver him from his adversaries. Then Wisdom Solomon of 2:18 reads, if the righteous man is the Most High's child, he will help him and he will deliver him from the hand of his adversaries. You see, that's the precept, because they knew about the apocrypha. And actually times you have precepts that they've quoted from the apocrypha, which proves that is once again canonical. Mark 9:48. It says, it is better for you to enter to the kingdom of the Most High with one eye than to have two eyes and to be thrown into hell where worms there never dies and the fire is never quenched. Okay, which we understand the symbology of that scripture. But Jude 16:17 reads, the Lord Almighty would take vengeance on them in the day of judgment, and he would send fire and worms into their flesh, and they should weep in pain forever. Okay. Luke 1:52, it says, he has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. But Sirach 10:14 reads, the Lord overthrows the thrones of the rulers and enthrones the lowly in their places. Okay, so there you go, man. And we could keep going. I mean, honestly speaking, John 6:35 through 59, it says, and Yahawashi said it to them, I am the bread of life, and whosoever comes to me would never be hungry, and whoever believes in me would never be thirsty. Sirach 24:21, it says, those who eat of me, which is wisdom, will hunger for more, and those who drink of me will thirst for more. You see, which Yahawashi quotes all in the Testaments, because Yahawashi is the word of the Most High, including the apocrypha. You see, John 10:22, it says, at that time the festival of dedication took place in Jerusalem. It was winter. Okay, First Maccabees 4:59. Then Judas, which we just read this, it says, Judas and his brothers and all the assembly of Israel determined that every year of the season, the days of dedication of the altar should be observed with joy and gladness of 8 days, beginning the 25th day of the month, a Chislev. Okay, a Kislev. You see, so anyway, we could keep going, you know, and we can break it down like the almsgiving mentioned in the New Testament. You got a whole breakdown about it in the Apocrypha. Tobit goes into almsgiving, and this is where they get it from, which the Apocrypha was written before the New Testament. You see, but anyway, man, this is just a quick little lesson, man, a little kind of bridge the gap lesson called between the Testaments. I do from time to time. It's a good read, but anyway, I'm gonna give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahawashi, Yahawashi. And with that, Shalom and a Baba Ball, Lord's will you were edified. To the next lesson. Shalom.